They said the billionaire's son was possessed. Every nanny he met left crying, bruised, or begging to quit. No one could handle his rage. Not even his father's money could fix it. But then, a quiet black maid walked in, and when that boy threw his toy truck at her face, she didn't scream. She just looked at him and said, "That didn't hurt me, baby, but I can tell something's hurting you." And in that moment, the monster everyone feared finally stopped. The story opens with the sprawling mansion of billionaire Charles Vance, a place where marble floors gleam like mirrors and chandeliers hang like frozen raindrops. But beneath all that beauty, there's an eerie kind of silence. Not peace, but emptiness. The mansion is alive only with whispers and footsteps that never linger. The staff move like shadows, careful not to breathe too loudly, not to disturb the still air that hangs heavy with fear. And at the center of it all is one name, Ethan Vance, Charles's 7-year-old son. The boy everyone talks about, but no one dares to approach. Every nanny who's come to care for him has left within weeks, some in tears, others in quiet shock. They speak of smashed mirrors, drawings torn to shreds, screams in the middle of the night. One nanny even said she woke to find him standing beside her bed, eyes cold, silent, watching. They all swear the same thing. That boy doesn't act like a child, but Charles doesn't care for stories. To him, his son's cruelty is just a phase. He tells himself that money can fix anything, behavior, grief, even loneliness. He's a man too busy building empires to notice the ruins inside his own home. He dismisses the nannies, hires new ones, and throws more money at the problem, hoping the noise of business will drown out the silence of his home. But Ethan's silence speaks louder than words ever could. He doesn't laugh, doesn't cry, doesn't even look anyone in the eye. His face is a mask, his gaze an echo of something broken. The boy wanders the mansion like a ghost who forgot he was alive, until the day Amara Johnson walks in, a black maid from the South Side, middle-aged, calm, eyes that carry both kindness and fire. She doesn't flinch at the mansion's coldness or the rumors whispered in the halls. When she first sees Ethan, small, distant, standing at the top of the staircase, she doesn't look at him with fear or pity. She just smiles, a real warm smile, as if she already knows something no one else does. And for a fleeting second, just one, the boy's eyes meet hers. He doesn't scream. He doesn't run. He just stares back and almost smiles. Amara Johnson is unlike anyone the mansion has ever seen. In her early 40s, she moves with quiet purpose, soft-spoken but unshakably strong. There's something about her presence that feels grounded. She doesn't come from money or privilege. She comes from survival, from long nights, small paychecks, and lessons learned through pain. Her strength isn't loud. It's steady, like the rhythm of a heartbeat that's endured storms and kept going. When Amara first walks through the gilded halls of the Vance mansion, she doesn't glance at the chandeliers or the marble floors the way others do. Luxury doesn't impress her, not anymore. What she notices instead is the loneliness. It's everywhere, seeps from the walls, hangs in the air like a chill. The mansion, though beautiful, feels unloved. Every room whispers the same truth. No one here knows peace. The staff warns her before she meets Ethan. "He'll break you," one maid whispers. "He broke everyone else." But Amara just smiles, brushing her apron straight. "Then maybe what he needs isn't someone afraid of breaking," she replies softly. When she finally meets Ethan, the boy stands at the end of a long hallway, his small frame tense, eyes dark with mistrust. Without a word, he hurls a toy truck at her. It hits her cheek, leaving a small mark. Gasps echo from the maids watching. Everyone expects her to scream, to storm out like the others. But Amara doesn't flinch. She simply looks at him, really looks. Her gaze isn't angry or shocked. It's patient, deep, motherly. "That didn't hurt me, baby," she says quietly. "But I can tell something's hurting you." The words hang in the air like a prayer. Something invisible shifts. Ethan freezes. His lips tremble, but he says nothing. For the first time, he doesn't throw, doesn't run, doesn't hide. He just stares, confused, almost scared, as if no one's ever spoken to him like that before. In that fragile silence, something new begins. Not obedience, not control, but understanding, and though neither of them knows it yet, that single moment, A toy truck, a soft voice, a quiet act of grace will be the first crack of light breaking through the mansion's darkness. As the days turn into weeks, Amara slowly begins to understand that Ethan's cruelty isn't born from evil. It's born from pain. His anger is a language, one he learned because love was taken away too soon. Through quiet observation, she pieces together the fragments of his story. The mansion's staff whisper when they think she's not listening. They tell her that Ethan's mother, Eleanor Vance, died under mysterious circumstances when he was just 3 years old. No one knows the full truth. Some say illness, others say accident. But what everyone agrees on is that after her death, Charles forbade anyone from mentioning her name. Every photo was removed, every trace of her scent, her laughter, her memory, gone. Amara imagines the child Ethan must have been, wandering through halls that used to echo with his mother's voice, now hollow and silent. The staff recall one heartbreaking moment. The boy once found one of his mother's scarves in an old closet. He held it close, crying quietly. When Charles saw him, he tore it away and yelled, "Forget her. She's gone." That was the last day Ethan ever cried or spoke. From then on, his rage became his only voice. But Amara refuses to fear that rage. Instead, she listens to it. Every time he throws something, she calmly picks it up. Every time he hides, she waits outside the door and hums an old gospel tune. His eye is on the sparrow. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Ethan starts to change. He begins helping her sweep. He follows her through the halls, mimicking the way she folds napkins or sets the table. When she prays before meals, he clasps his little hands too, eyes shut tightly. Sometimes when she hums, he hums along, offbeat, off-key, but smiling. The mansion itself seems to shift. Rooms once heavy with silence now echo faintly with warmth. The staff begin to whisper new stories about a boy who's finally learning to be gentle, but not everyone welcomes the light. Charles watches from his office window, jaw tight, eyes cold. His son, once untouchable, now laughs, but only with her. And that truth eats at him. The idea that his heir, his only son, could find comfort in a maid's arms feels like an insult his pride can't bear. A storm is building, quiet, unseen, but inevitable. The night of the dinner was meant to be perfect, flawless, as Charles Vance called it. Every detail had been orchestrated to impress his guests. Crystal glasses lined like soldiers, candles flickering over imported china, a symphony of soft jazz playing in the background. The mansion, usually quiet and haunted, now buzzed with expensive laughter and the clinking of cutlery. But behind all the glitter, something darker brewed, tension that only Amara could feel. She stood near the kitchen door, dressed neatly in her uniform, hands folded. She had been told to stay invisible, to ensure the evening went smoothly, but to never step into the light. She understood what that meant. She was welcome to serve, but not to exist. Ethan sat stiffly beside his father, dressed in a miniature tuxedo, his small face pale with effort. Charles had made it clear earlier, "If you embarrass me tonight, you'll regret it." Ethan's fork trembled in his hand as the guests laughed and toasted. One man, slightly drunk and far too comfortable, leaned toward Charles with a smirk. "Your boy looks just like his mother, doesn't he? What was her name again? Elena?" The air shattered. Ethan's hands froze mid-motion. His breathing quickened. A single tear welled in his eye before rage replaced it. Then, without warning, he screamed, a sound that was more animal than child, and threw his plate across the table. Glass shattered, food splattered across polished marble. The guests gasped. Charles's face turned crimson. "Ethan, enough!" He barked, but the boy didn't stop. He screamed louder, crying, trembling, clutching his chest as though the name itself had ripped open an old wound. And then it happened. Charles stood towering over his son and slapped him. The sound cracked through the room like thunder. The laughter died. The jazz stopped. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Amara moved. Without hesitation, she stepped from the kitchen door, her steps firm, her eyes blazing. She pushed past the stunned guests and reached Ethan, who was shaking in silent sobs. She crouched and pulled him close, her body forming a shield around his trembling frame. "Don't touch him," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the room like a command. Every syllable burned with quiet fire. Charles's jaw clenched. "Excuse me." I said, "Don't touch him." Her hands shook, but her gaze didn't waver. "He's a child, not your reflection. You break him every time you try to control him." The guests exchanged horrified glances. A maid talking back to a billionaire? To Charles Vance? It was unthinkable. Charles's pride shattered into fury. His voice rose, echoing through the marble halls. "You're fired. Get out of my house this instant." But Ethan clung to her leg, crying harder. "No," he screamed. "Don't leave. Don't." His voice cracked, raw with panic. Security moved closer, hesitant. Amara tried to comfort him, whispering softly, "It's okay, baby. It's okay." And then, the moment that silenced the world, Ethan's trembling voice broke through the noise. Small but crystal clear, "Don't leave me." "Mama." The room went still. The guests froze mid-breath, Charles's face drained of color. For a second, the mask of power, wealth, and arrogance fell away, revealing something fragile. Guilt. He stared at his son. Then at Amara, this woman his pride had despised, now holding his child like the mother he'd erased. Tears burned in his eyes, but his voice betrayed no softness. He turned away, ordering security to escort her out. Ethan screamed her name until his voice broke, his cries echoing through the halls long after the doors closed. And when silence finally returned to the mansion, it wasn't the proud, polished silence Charles had once loved. It was a hollow, aching silence, the sound of a man realizing he had just lost the only two people who'd ever truly loved his son. Days turned into weeks, and Amara was gone, as if she had been erased from the marble halls of the Vance mansion. The echoes of her footsteps, once gentle and steady, no longer graced the floors. Her laughter, her humming in the morning, even the warmth she brought to Ethan's world, all vanished. The mansion stood cold again, gleaming but lifeless like a museum of sorrow. Ethan refused to eat. His favorite dishes sat untouched. Tutors came and went, trying to coax him to speak, but he remained silent, his eyes dull and distant. The boy who once laughed in Amara's kitchen now sat beside the window for hours, staring into the garden where she used to hold his hand. Every night Charles would find him asleep there, curled up with the small blanket Amara had sewn for him. Charles tried everything. Therapy sessions with the best child psychologists, expensive toys, weekend trips to theme parks. Nothing worked. The house that once symbolized power and prestige now felt like a mausoleum, a grave for emotions buried alive. The emptiness was suffocating. The wealth he once flaunted now mocked him in every reflection. One night, unable to bear the silence, Charles got into his car and drove without direction. He ended up in a part of the city he had never dared to visit before, the poorer district, where the buildings leaned tiredly against each other and laughter echoed freely through narrow streets. There, he saw her. Amara stood outside a small community center, surrounded by children, her face glowing in the soft sunset. She was teaching them to read, holding a tattered book and guiding their little fingers across the words. They giggled when they stumbled, and she smiled patiently, radiating a calm joy that Charles hadn't seen in years. For the first time, he saw her not as the help, but as a healer. She was what his money could never buy, grace, strength, and love born from truth. Watching her, he felt something shift inside him, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel since his wife's death. Humility. When she noticed him standing there, she didn't flinch. Her eyes met his, calm and unyielding. "I didn't come for forgiveness," Charles said quietly. "I came because Ethan needs you. And maybe I do too." Amara listened, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded slowly. "I'll come back," she said softly. "But not for you. For him." Before he could thank her, she added one condition, her voice steady but her words sharp as glass. "If you want your son to be whole again, you start by saying her name." Charles froze. That name, Elena, had been locked deep inside him for years, sealed by grief and guilt. But now, in front of Amara, it broke free. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Elena." Tears followed, raw and unstoppable. At that moment, Ethan, who had been standing behind the door, ran to him. The boy threw his arms around his father, crying. Not from pain this time, but from release. The mansion that had once felt cursed began to breathe again. It wasn't just a home of marble and wealth anymore. It was a place of healing, where truth had finally been spoken, and love, humbled, had found its way back. Months later, the Vance mansion feels almost unrecognizable. The same corridors that once echoed with silence and fear now carry the sound of laughter. Ethan's laughter, pure and full. The boy who once hid behind walls of rage now runs through the gardens barefoot, dirt smudged on his cheeks, joy glimmering in his eyes. Where broken toys once lay scattered, there are now flower pots, seedlings, and life sprouting in unexpected places. Amara spends her mornings with him in the garden. She shows him how to plant seeds gently, how to whisper to the earth and wait patiently for things to grow. Ethan listens closely, his small hands digging into the soil beside hers. Sometimes, when the sunlight hits her just right, he says she looks like the angels in his storybooks. Amara only laughs softly. "Angels ain't always what we think, baby," she says. "Sometimes they just show up to remind us what love feels like." Charles watches from a distance. He's changed too, though not completely. The once commanding man now speaks less, listens more. The harsh lines on his face have softened, but the weight of his mistakes lingers in his eyes. He often joins them in the garden, awkwardly at first, fumbling with a shovel or asking too many questions. But over time, he learns the rhythm, not of business, but of living. When he sees Ethan smile, he realizes the empire he built means nothing compared to the peace he's finally beginning to understand. As the months pass, Amara knows her time there is ending. Her purpose was never to stay forever, only to heal what was broken. One quiet afternoon, she packs her small suitcase. The same room that once felt like a servant's quarters now feels sacred, filled with the warmth of her presence. Ethan bursts in, holding a folded piece of paper. His face glows with pride. "I made you something," he says breathlessly. When she opens it, she finds a simple drawing. 3 figures holding hands. Ethan in the middle, Charles on one side, and her on the other. Above them, in shaky handwriting, he's written, "My family." Amara's eyes glisten. She kneels, taking his small hands in hers. "Baby," she whispers, her voice trembling. "Family isn't blood. It's love, love that refuses to quit, even when it's hard." Ethan throws his arms around her, holding on tightly, as if afraid she might vanish. When she finally steps outside, the sun paints the mansion gold. Ethan stands at the top of the steps, waving with that same smile, the one that began everything. Charles stands beside him, his hand resting gently on his son's shoulder, watching in silence as Amara walks away. In that moment, he understands what she truly was, not just a maid, not even just a savior. She was a reminder that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they wear aprons. Sometimes they come to teach the rich what money can't buy: love, humility, and the courage to be human again. And as the camera of life pulls back, the mansion, once a symbol of emptiness, now glows with quiet redemption. What began in fear has ended in freedom. What was once broken now blooms. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and inspiring stories. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.